So, I am super stoked to dive in. I'm going to do my best to teach you the things that allowed me to change my life. Okay, so quick background, quick story. Like maybe some of you, I grew up in a circumstance I did not like. I moved around a lot. I had 14 schools before I graduated from high school. My parents, like maybe some of yours, maybe some people you know, they suffered a lot. They were addicts, alcoholics, abusers. They experienced things in their life that they couldn't quite put behind them. And being raised in that environment, I brought a lot of that into my adult life. You know, I had a real struggle kind of putting it down. And part of what I'm going to teach you today helped me with that. And then it introduced me to something that changed everything. And I think many of you can relate to this. So if I ask you to shout yes for me, will you do that? Yes! Okay. I want you to give me a big loud yes if when you were a kid, you knew that when you grew up, you wanted to work in sales. One more time. Yeah, that was a sympathy yes. That wasn't a real yes, right? None of us are like, oh my God, I can't wait to learn all this cool stuff I could be. Like, I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to be a blah, 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 blah. Let's just set all that aside and work in sales. Ugh, you know? Sales for me was not a choice. Maybe you can relate to that. I never wanted to be a salesperson. I just met a woman I loved. And then we're going to have a baby and I need her more money. Like, what am I going to do? I looked around at, you know, what were my options? And people said, well, you should go into sales. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. But I had all this role rejection. I didn't want to do it. And after college, I got a job working for GTE directories. Anyone here old enough to remember the Yellow Pages? Anyone? Okay, yeah. So I loved that job because I got to work with entrepreneurs every single day. I got to like see what was going on in their world and learn about their businesses. I thought that was super cool. And after about 6 weeks into that job, my boss called me into her office and she says, Dan, we like you, but we're going to have to take your headset away. You're not selling enough to stay here. And I was just so defeated with this. And I remember the pressure of her saying that and our little baby Zoe at home and having to go home and explain that, you know, I lost my job just was unacceptable. So in that moment, this little switch in my brain was like, okay, I need to sell her on not firing me. That's what I have to do. And so that's what happened. She said, okay, I'll give you a chance. We're going to keep you if. And I was like, okay, whatever the if is, I'm saying yes to the if, right? I'm keeping this job. And then she said, Tony Robbins is coming to town, and I want you to go. And I was like, oh no, not that. Anything but that. So do you remember Tony Robbins back in the 90s? Like this freakishly tall, skinny guy on TV in the middle of the night? Nobody loved Tony Robbins then. Like, no. That was snake oil. I didn't want anything to do with that. And she says, he's coming to town. It's a one-day event. I want you to go. If you go, I'll let you keep your job. And I said, well, okay, I'll go. How much is it? She says, $400. And I was like, I don't have $400. I couldn't even borrow $400. And so she said, well, I'll buy your ticket, but if I have to fire you, you owe me $400. And I said, okay. Right? So who's been to a Tony Robbins event? Show of hands. Yeah, pretty good. Right? So you know what it's like to walk in, the music is pumping, everybody's jumping up and down. It's like, hey, what's your name, man? Hey, I do this, I do that. It's like everybody's up. Everybody's there. I walk in like this. What is wrong with these people? Like, it just felt so weird to me. It felt so weird. And I remember, like, sitting there, and everybody's standing around me, and I was like, okay, I feel the pressure that maybe I need to stand up. And I remember my boss, you know, starting to, like, jump up and down with everybody else. And I was like, this is so weird. And as I looked down the row, I noticed it wasn't just my boss, it was her boss, and then that person's boss, and then the next person's boss. I was like, maybe there's something here. If all these people are taking the time to do this, maybe there's something here. So he takes the stage, he starts yapping, and I'm listening, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. This is garbage. Like, that's not true. I know why that isn't gonna work. I had all that kind of initial response to it. And maybe about 10 a.m. I went, actually, that was a pretty good point, right? And maybe at 10:30 I was like, okay, yeah, I see that. That makes sense. And at 11 I'm like, okay, I'm the problem. Like, I have a massive chip on my shoulder. Like, I feel like because I went through so much that I just deserved. I wasn't taking responsibility for my own happiness. I wasn't taking responsibility for my own results. And I had all these reasons outside of myself for why I wasn't where I wanted to be. And in that moment, I was like, oh gosh, I have to make a change. So come noon, I'm jumping up and down with everybody else, right? And a few days later, I'm back at my job. Like, the weekend's over. It's time to apply what I learned. And at first, it was a little bit of a challenge, right? But there was one thing he taught me that day that I credit with allowing me to go from nearly fired to the highest paid, fastest promoted sales rep in company history, right? I credit what I learned that day with allowing me to start my own companies, allow me to go from a place of lack and uncertainty to a place of wealth and abundance. And that's what I'm gonna pour into you today, right? So get ready to take your notes, and also know that I'm gonna make sure you have great notes at the end of today's session. So game on, are we ready? Let's go, let's do it. If you haven't already, grab my contact information or just go to connectwithdanstewart.com. You can stalk me on social. Weirdos, do that. Your workbook will be available for you at yes@happygrasshopper.com. Same link as earlier, different thing that's going to get returned. Okay? So just send any email to that and you'll get the workbook. And you're going to want this workbook because I'm going to teach more things in the next 20 minutes than will be easy to grab onto. Right? So, professional sales, what the heck is it? Call it out for me. What do we do in professional sales? Help someone what? Help someone make a decision. We connect. What else do we do? We listen. I like that. What else? Solve problems. I love that. I love that. I think all of those are partially right. And if we put them together and we distill it, what we end up is that professional sales is really helping people get what they want, what they really want, more quickly. Right? Do people want to live somewhere? Yes or no? Yes, of course they do, right? Do people want to sell their house for the maximum amount of money with the smallest amount of inconvenience? Yes, absolutely. So at a high level, we kind of understand these things. And yet a lot of times we get in our own way when we're making a buyer's presentation, we're making a listing consultation, right? So today we're going to learn to do some things differently. It's going to empower us to act in a different way. And to do that, we have to understand why we think the way that we do. Because we live in a weird time. We're consuming more media than our brains can keep up with. Like every Sunday, you get the same screen report on your iPhone I do, right? Isn't it depressing? You wasted 9.7 hours a day, or whatever it is. It's like, it happens. There's a real consequence of this behavior. Our addiction to our devices, our consumption of media, it changes the way our brains process information. And all our lives, that's been used against us. If you've consumed any mass market television commercial since 1970, you've been exposed to what I'm about to teach you today. Like literally, we've spent our whole lives in an experiment we didn't even know was running. It's like crazy, amazing, interesting stuff. So let's look at the data, right? We're consuming more content, more media than at any point in human history. This study was last updated in 2014, and it says we're spending 590 minutes a day consuming content. That's crazy. That's a huge amount of data. We break that down, it's 9.8 hours a day, 68.8 hours a week, 149 days a year. And if we're lucky enough to live to the average lifespan, we're spending 30 years of our lives consuming content. Think about the consequence of that. I'm not telling you not to watch television, not to binge Netflix. I may or may not do those things on occasion, right? It's okay to do that. It's not okay to understand that that doesn't have a huge impact. So what's happening here behind the scenes is that we're investing more time in this consumption than almost any other thing we do in our lives. Right? You guys remember Malcolm Gladwell? He's the guy who came up with the idea that if you invest 10,000 hours of effort in something, you can become world class. And here we are, all of us, investing more time in becoming expert consumers than we're even aware of. Right? So we're going to peel back the layers today, and we're going to teach you the language that's been used to require you to buy things. Right now, people in this room want things, and we don't even know why we do. Right? We don't even know why. We feel compelled to buy it. So many have spent our lives chasing an acquisition as if that's going to make us happy. Right? But we don't understand why. We're going to get to the bottom of that. And to do that, we have to go back in time. It starts with these guys. You remember? The greatest generation, stomp fascism, like save the world, democracy. Yeah, we love these guys. The greatest generation came back from war and gave birth to these guys. Right? That freaked out these guys. And they're like, what do? We got to figure this out. What's the future of America? Right? What if we had to do this war again? How are those folks going to win it? Right? It was a big question. And so they turned to this guy. Anyone recognize him? I'll give you a hint. Kind of getting it now? This is Abraham Maslow. He's the guy who came up with the hierarchy of human needs, right? We got to have food, shelter, right? All these things that we have to have in life. Well, he took all of his knowledge of psychology, was hired by the US government to create an incredibly dense study called the Lifestyles and Values Survey. It's the first time in history that we combine the sciences of demographics, and psychology. We created something new called psychographics. Right? So, new science. What is this? How can we use it? Well, these guys caught wind of that. Anybody recognize them? Yeah. Sorry, ladies. They really look like these guys. Okay? So these are the Madison Avenue advertising executives of the early 1970s. And what they did is they took that giant report and they said, you know what? We're going to use this science to create the most effective selling mechanism in the shortest amount of time possible. They wanted to do the best possible job they could. So they took this report to Stanford University, where the Stanford Research Institute applied all of this science to advertising. If you've ever watched a commercial and you felt yourself well up with emotion, it's this that did it. If you ever watched a commercial and felt inspired to take action, it's rooted in this study. Right? So we're going to go deep on some topics today, and then I'm going to make sure I can feed you this information over time so that you can apply it successfully. Right? And I know what I've just explained is stupid weird. It just is. So I need to give you some evidence that it's actually going to work. This is from Ginny Barker. She took this class. She used some of what I taught her, and she went out and she wrote an offer on a $2.2 million home. Right? That's a good thing. A lot of agents have some resistance about working with wealthy people. Right? We're going to get past that today. You should never bring your checkbook to your client's transaction. Right? Their economic reality is theirs. Your economic reality is yours. You don't want to signal them it's not okay to buy that beautiful property because maybe it's something you couldn't personally do. Right? $2.2 million sale. I love this from Kim Litvak. She says the phrase, "Don't bring your checkbook to their transaction," clicked for her. She changed her behavior, and she's seen her average transaction value shift upwards by over $300,000. That's awesome, right? That's a really good thing. And here's one of my all-time favorites. This is Justin Seeby. Can you guys play that for me in the back?
Hey, I'm going to give you a shout out. Sorry I keep calling late. Thanks for coming up. I want to share an experience that I just had and helped me tremendously with, not even knowing it. But I'm dealing with a woman who I'm looking at a property with a 3-3, wanted to offer 2-7. And after I had a conversation with him and his wife and asked the question, what will it mean to you if you get the house? They went from 2-7 to 3-1 with their initial offer. So boom, that works. One day after being caught, I applied it and it works. I also dropped in a couple of things, in the United States directly, but I say a couple of times, you deserve that. You're at the point in your life where you deserve it. You deserve that. You deserve leadership. You deserve leadership power practice. He even made time he said, "Man, I told you he was good."
I'm jumping forward, right? I've got a lot to teach, but you get the idea. What I'm about to teach you, as soon as you apply it, you're going to see it work. It's not something you've got to experiment with for months and months and months. As soon as the next time you have a client conversation, you're going to be empowered to have more effective conversations. And that's going to happen because you will understand the 6 buyer profiles. Now, also in interest of time, one of these profiles doesn't buy houses, so we can scratch them off the list for now, right? The first one, though, is the joiner, and the joiner is the largest group in America. And the way there we go. The joiner is the largest group in America. Most of us are joiners, right? But whether someone's a joiner, a faker, or royal or green, the way you find out which group they're in is by asking one simple question. I call this the power question. What's most important to you about blank? And I'm going to want you to ask this question multiple ways, right? So let's imagine I'm doing a buyer's consultation. Chad, can I use you as an example? Sure. All right, perfect. So, Chad, I'm so glad we have a chance to meet today. I'd really love to know, what's most important to you and your family about the next home you purchase?
It's important that we have a nice yard for the kids and that we're in a good school zone.
Okay, he's saying it's important to have a nice yard for the kids and a good school zone, right? You've probably all heard that sort of an answer, right? From this point forward, that sort of an answer is going to allow you to say, ooh, I know which of these buyer profile categories that person goes into, right? So this question, what's most important to you about blank, you want to ask in multiple ways. Okay, so I got that about the neighborhood. What do you think is most important to you about the particular house? Right? And then whatever the answers are, I just want you to be able to listen to them and then understand what it means. So I'm going to give you examples here along the way. Let's get to know the joiner. 40% of us fall into this category. And joiners are super easy to spot, right? They're wearing their team's jersey on game day, right? They've got bumper stickers on their car. They get the vanity license plates. It's important to them to signal to other people that they belong, that they're part of something, right? So a lot of us are joiners. A lot of homeowners are joiners. They like to put down roots. They want to be part of something. They want to belong to a community. And to truly understand this category, you have to understand what they're afraid of and what they're really motivated by. So call it out for me. What do we think a joiner might be afraid of? What comes to mind?
Missing out.
Missing out? Good. Not being accepted? Okay. What else we got?
What their friends and family might think about their decision.
Yeah, friends and family, what other people might think about them. What was yours, Lori? Failure. Afraid of failure. Interesting. The fear, the thing that keeps a joiner up at night is actually change. And change is ever present, right? It's everywhere all the time, but that's the thing that they're most concerned about is change. And they're motivated to keep things the same. right? So Chad, I'll use you as an example again. We've just done our buyer's consult. You're now in my car, and we're going to look at some properties that could be suitable for you, right? So I'm personally super excited because there's all sorts of cool things happening in the area. Do you know that they just opened a new plant down the road, and they're taking all this old shopping center and they're tearing it down, and they're going to build a brand new mall, like right here. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have this and that and the other thing. I'm personally excited about that, but my joiner client is freaking out because of all this change, right? If I know for sure I'm working with a joiner, I'm going to say things like, you know what I love about this area, Chad? I mean, look at the trees. A lot of areas, they come in, they just mow everything down, but I mean, that tree's got to be hundreds of years old, right? You know, I love about this area are the people. You know, you'll find as you get to know people, there's a lot of people here who want to connect, really get to know other people. Like you're speaking directly to what they want. They've told you what they want, you're giving it directly to them. That's professional selling. You're helping them get what they want more quickly, what they really want at the deepest level. All right, so does that make sense for the joiner? All right, so let's demonstrate how you can understand who a joiner is. I saw this in traffic the other day. I just had to grab it, right? So, I mean, look at the back of the car. We know they're the executive director of something. That's important. They want the world to know that. We know they support the Tampa Bay Rays. We know that they're Disney fans. And, you know, first glance you think, oh, they're parents. They've got a bunch of kids. But if you go closer, those are cats. These are weird people. No one should own 5 cats. Trust me, because we have 5 cats. It's not good. It's not good. Right? So joiners will advertise that they're joiners. They're easy to spot. And in media, like as you're consuming media, as you're watching television, as you're scrolling on your phone, I want you to recognize what ads you're seeing that are targeted to the joiner. This is so cool. This picture is over 10 years old. I wonder, does anyone recognize this commercial? There's usually a few people who are like, yeah, I know that commercial. I see some heads nodding. It looks familiar. You can't quite place it. This was a Budweiser Super Bowl commercial from 2014, right? What happened is this soldier comes home, and they arrange for the whole hometown to greet him, right? They've got a bleachers set up. They got a parade going. He's like, oh, my God, everybody's here. And at the end of the street, you see the camera, you know, the telephoto lens grabs. There's his fiance waiting at the end, and she's getting misty, and he's getting misty, and here comes the reconnection, the reunion. And even now, I'm getting a little misty. Like, the psychology is so incredibly powerful. And then they relate that immediately to their product, which often has nothing to do with that psychological journey you're going on. The product here was Budweiser, right? Not much to do with beer, but very effective ad strategy because the story is so compelling that it's not just a good ad, it's a news event. This couple went on talk shows around the country. Like, oh, it's so special you're home. It was so nice of Budweiser to do this for you. What amazing advertising that is. Incredibly powerful stuff. Let's go a little deeper here. My clicker's dead, guys. Okay, here we go. Next group, the faker. This is a slightly smaller group, but the second largest in the US. And for an industry known for faking it till it makes it, some of this might hit close to home. Just saying. So the faker is future-oriented. They will buy products and services. They will invest in things that they believe will give them a better tomorrow. They're living in the future, right? Now, their big fear, I've already put up here, is getting found out. And their big motivator is to be desired, right? They will buy the car, the house, the clothes, the jewelry, because they believe if they have those things, they will be wanted, right? They will be wanted. So back to our scenario where we're having a buyer's consult. I'm asking the power question. Hey, I'd love to know what's really most important to you about the next home you purchase, right? They're going to say different things. The faker is going to name a neighborhood probably first, and it's usually got a name like Avila or Aventura or something that says, pinkies up, everyone, right? Here we go. They want to live in that branded neighborhood so they can tell people that's where they live. Now, look at subdivisions wherever you live, right? You've got the expensive homes at the back and the townhomes and condos or less expensive properties at the front, right? The builders building for fakers, they put all the finishes on the facade. All the money goes into the kitchen and the master bathroom, right? They're selling directly to that profile where it's important for us to project the right image, even though we know we're not quite there yet. That's what the faker's doing. Now, ladies, you know the faker, right? This is the guy with the fancy car, right? The lease car, okay? The great wardrobe, the credit card debt you can't see, and the crappy apartment he really wants to get you back to, right? That's the faker. The faker is so like, if I just have the right stuff, people are gonna want me. That's really what they think. And in advertising, the way that gets translated is through you all know the term, right? Sex sells, right? So when you're consuming media and you're seeing an ad that's looking kind of sexy, you're like, okay, I know who they're selling this to, right? So let's imagine we've now got the faker, we're touring a home, right? They've got this future-paced movie studio in their head ready to go at a moment's notice. You open the back door, there's a beautiful pool, lanai area there, and you say, wow, can you imagine the party you would have here, right? Oh, they can. Like they've got the Swedish bikini team already like ready to go here. They've got all this imagery. You open the master bath and there's a giant tub. It looks like more than one person would fit in there. Right? Like you do not have to cross the line. They're crossing it all the time, right? They're doing that for you. So I want to help you identify how this is used in advertising, right? Here we've got Cindy Crawford and an Omega watch, right? They're associating her esteemed beauty with their product, right? They're saying, if you had this watch, you would be this beautiful to ladies. And they're saying, if you get her this watch, you never know, right? There's a communication here. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's not, right? I mean, this is pretty crazy. We've got a headline that reads, in a luxury crossover. What happens in the luxury crossover? We don't know. We don't know, but she's dressed to go swimming. Is there a pool? I mean, who knows? Let's climb in, we'll find out, right? They are absolutely targeting the faker with this ad strategy. And it's crazy to me how little the product has to do with the feelings they're trying to create. And it's also astounding to me how suggestive it can be sometimes. Like this ad from Coca-Cola, for example. I'm going to use a few Coca-Cola examples today. But, I mean, the caption is, taste the feeling. Like, come on, Coca-Cola. Like, what are you doing here? This is ridiculous. And I get it. All the women here are like, yeah, men are stupid. This stuff will work. Of course, right? It works on you too. It works on you too. Here's an example. I'll let that sink in, right? You have 918,000 friend requests, and the product is Wonder Bra. Okay? They're selling directly to that psychological need to be desired. That's what they're targeting here. That's what they're going after, right? So let's jump into my favorite group. This is the Royal. If you want to earn more GCI without necessarily having to do a ton more transactions, the obvious path is shifting up market. And yet a lot of us have challenges with that. Like if we didn't grow up with wealth, it's not unusual to be intimidated by people who have it. It's a real thing. This is not a super huge segment of the population. It's a little bit under 10%. But these people can absolutely make a huge difference in the progress of your career, right? They absolutely can. And just like these other groups, they have fears and they have desires. The biggest fear for the royal is being mistaken for a faker, right? That seems kind of crazy, doesn't it? But look at some of the products that high net worth individuals buy. Like, do you know anyone with a Ferrari? Okay, some yeses out here. That's good. Like, a Toyota will get you from A to B just as well as the Ferrari will. Nobody needs it. The reason people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a car isn't for the car. It's for the hole inside themselves that the car gets to fill. Right? That's really what it's about. And the tricky thing with the high net worth individual that most of us don't understand is that 80% of them earned their prosperity. Right? They didn't inherit it. They didn't win the lottery. They didn't luck into this. They earned it. Right? So they're like normal people. They grew up with the same mores. Right? They have the same attitudes and belief about what you should do with money. And a lot of times that means it's hard to get them to let go of it. You know, nobody needs that $5 million second home, right? Nobody needs it. They just kind of want it. They kind of do. And yet they often won't close unless you're saying the right thing at the right time. And we're going to help you with that. Now, their big motivator, the thing that really speaks to the royal more than anything else, is validation. That's what they need. They need you to tell them that they deserve it. So again, back to my buyer's consult. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I think it's amazing that you've arrived at a point in your life where you can afford these types of properties. My job is to make sure that you get exactly what you want from this because you deserve it. Right? That language, repeated, tells them that it's okay. Like the scenario with the voicemail that I played you, right? Justin Seeby. He went out to show a home. I think it was listed at 3.1. They wanted a lowball offer of 2.7. The reason they wanted to bring that offer down is because the home had features they didn't think were necessary. There was a carousel in the driveway to turn your car around. They didn't want that. Don't need it. There were heated towel racks in every bathroom throughout the house. Like, that's stupid. We wouldn't spend money on that, right? But, you know, if you can reposition that for them, if you can say, you know what, I think it's wonderful this home has these features, right? Not everybody needs them. Not everybody gets to experience. I just think it's really wonderful that you've arrived at a place where you can. Validation, validation, validation. And then you can anchor those validating statements with a question. And that question is, what would it mean to you? Right? What would it mean to you? And then you fill in the blank. What would it mean to you to live in this home? You know, what would it mean for you and your family if you were able to visit this property a few times a year? Right? Because maybe it's a luxury second home property. We don't know. You got to position that question the right way, but either way, it's speaking to that deep motivation. They need that validation. They need it from you. And I'm going to speak from a little bit of experience here, right? I didn't grow up with resources. I feel very fortunate to have created them. And my wife and I found ourselves with a paid-off home in 2009, I think it was. And, I mean, we were still seeing the tail end of the 2008, 2010, 2011. There were still a lot of properties out there. And we turned to each other and we're like, you know what? The market is right. Maybe there is another dream house we should own. Maybe this dream could be even bigger. And that's when we started shopping for the horse farm we live at today. We didn't need to buy it. We were already mortgage free in a home we absolutely loved. Had everything we wanted, access to everything we needed. The horse farm purchase was a way for us to say, you know what, we really did make it. We can really create a special place for our family to enjoy, maybe for generations. Like, it was a different thing. It wasn't about access or amenities. It was very much about what it would mean to us to actually achieve that goal, right? So when you're communicating with the high net worth individuals, keep that in mind, right? Now I'm going to show you some great examples here. Here's a Ferrari ad. I love this. The headline, incorruptible power asks pristine beauty to the dance, right? What are they saying? Hey, rich person, you deserve this car. You're incorruptible, right? You deserve pristine beauty. You can get it. Get off your wallet, drive the car, right? That's the thing they're trying to communicate here. And notice what it doesn't say. 5-star safety ratings. The joiner cares about that stuff, right? Know what it doesn't say? Lease for only $8.99 a month. The faker cares about that stuff, right? Here they're speaking directly to that deep psychological need. And it's so consistent across luxury brands. I love this ad from Bentley. The caption here says, "You can lead an interesting life now or embellish your autobiography later." Come on, rich person, you know you're going to write an autobiography, right? Your life is amazing, but why not even make it more amazing with this car? That's what they're trying to communicate. And my favorite all-time Royal ad, it's another car brand, and the ad psychology is so spot on, they don't even need a picture of the car, right? How cool is this? Can you read that in the back? You can't. It says, if you could choose between world peace and a Porsche 911, and then in fine print, what color would you want your Porsche to be? Get off your money, rich person. You're not going to save the world. You can drive the Porsche. Like, you should probably do that. They're trying to make it okay and safe for you to give yourself that thing that you really want. And this is where agents sometimes get into trouble, right? Because maybe you're driving a 10-year-old car to show that $3.1 million listing. Maybe you're feeling all of those, internal financial pressures, and yet here you have someone who doesn't. This transaction is theirs. It's their checkbook. It's not yours. Don't let that get in the way. Don't ever let your own personal financial reality prevent them from making this purchase. Right? If you're signaling them, yeah, you're right, those towel bars, you don't need those. Yeah, carousel, that's stupid. Yeah, don't be that person. Help them access the thing they deserve and that they really truly need. Right? That's what all these brands are doing that I'm showing you. Right? So let's move on to the next group. This is the green, and this is a growing group. We have more greens today than we've had at any point in history. And the green is really, really clearly concerned with the health of our planet, right? They are, I'm going to click again, the right thing here, there we go. Their big fear is being perceived as a consumer. Like, I remember as a teenager in the 80s, the idea of these yuppies, wanting to acquire, buy. It's kind of distasteful to some people. Other people are like, yeah, I want that thing too. Let's go. Well, for the green, it's absolutely not okay to be perceived as a consumer, right? There are some luxury markets, greens can be wealthy, where the homes are small, but the finishes are amazing. You have an $1,800 per square foot tiny home with just miraculous finishes everywhere. Those people will buy that home because they know that what they're doing is sustainable. Right? So think about that green. Think about the marketing that you're seeing. Some of you have never heard what a SEER reading was until just a few years ago. And nowadays it's like 18 SEER minimum, right? We're hearing about solar panels. We've got all this insulation and things that we're doing to make our homes more efficient. People care about that. You're hearing about it because brands recognize the market cares about it, right? So their motivation is to save the earth. And when you have an opportunity to work with these people, the way you position the product you're selling makes a huge difference. Right? I'm going to give you an example here. So have you ever been asked to show, oh gosh, I'm sorry guys, I'm a little out of sequence. I'll show you some ad examples and then I'll give the house example. Coca-Cola again, right? This is what we have. Instead of the Taste the Feeling ad, the same brand is now partnering with the World Wildlife Fund. They've got a bunch of plants on the billboard, leaving the outline the shape of a Coke bottle. And it says, this billboard absorbs air pollutants. Right? Is Coca-Cola a healthy product? I mean, it can dissolve a human tooth overnight. Like, not super cool, right? But they're happy to associate their product with the psychologies of the consumer. They will do that. So Coca-Cola did it this way. This is the real estate example I'd like to give you. You guys recognize kitchen? I mean, of course, right? Who else grew up in this kitchen? Yeah, my people, right? My people. So you got your listing. You're like, yay, I have a listing. This is great. Oh, what am I going to do about this kitchen? Right? You go, do I convince the sellers to remodel this? Maybe I do, maybe I don't, right? If you're working with the buyers and you know you've got to show the house with this kitchen, you're probably feeling some things about that. So here's what I want you to think about, right? If you know for sure you have the green and you're going to show them a house that has dated features, here you go. You walk into the kitchen. You say, you know what? I actually love how well made this kitchen is that it's lasted this long. And I'm really glad it's here in use instead of in a landfill somewhere, right? Mic drop, write the contract, okay? Yeah, that thing, it's just helping them understand. You can take the same property and position it different ways according to who you know you're working with, right? When you're working with the joiner, it's got to be about community and history and roots, right? When you're working with the faker, it's got to be about the future, right? And how this property will lead to something more in their life. When you're working with the royal, it's got to be about filling that need for validation. You deserve it. You get to have these things. And then, of course, when you're working with the green, everything that you're seeing, whether it's a brand new build or it's, the Brady Bunch kitchen, you've got to be able to talk fluently according to what they actually desire. Is this making sense? Are you seeing where you could apply these things? Like, it's not rocket science on the surface. There's rocket science underneath it. My goal today is to take the rocket science part out, just give you the slightest bit of that, and really get you focused on the high-level things you need to ask. So what's the power question? Call it out for me. What's most important to you about blank? Absolutely. So as soon as your next conversation with a client, a prospect, maybe on each other, I want you to ask that question. Just get in the habit of doing it. Your kids come home from school, you can ask that question, right? Hey, I'd love to know what's most important to you about this afternoon, right? See what they're interested in. Ask that question in different ways. You're sitting at a restaurant, the server comes up to take your order. Hey, I'd love to know what's most important to you about your job here. Like, boom, you're going to understand what category they're in. You can practice this everywhere, and then when you apply it in your career, you're going to immediately see the impact, right? You definitely are. So now we've got to pull all this together. We've got all these individual groups, and yet most real estate transactions have at least two parties on one side, right? So it's possible to have a couple where one person's a joiner and the other person's a royal. Or one person's a faker and the other person's a green. It's fully possible. We also know that when you're working with a couple, there's usually one person who's kind of making the decisions, right? I mean, absolutely. So you definitely want to know which profile that person is and make sure you're saying the right things to them, okay? So when it comes to the combo pack, the answers are it depends. Right? That simple two-word answer, it depends. You're going to have to ask them. Now, the other part of being a combo pack is you might buy some things in the profile of a joiner and other things in the profile of a royal. Right? The way that I buy shoes is different than the way I buy real estate. Okay? It's possible. So you don't need to master all those different categories. You just have to think about in terms of real estate, what really is that most desired thing that they want, right? So again, the power question, what's most important to you about blank? We're going to ask that in lots of different ways. We're definitely going to do it. And then we're going to put it all together. So those of you who've had chats here at the Happy Grasshopper booth or came, we maybe were at dinner last night, you're hearing me consistently say, with your content, you really have a choice. You can inform them or you can engage them. One or the other. You can't do both. Every message you send should have a single purpose. And if you're communicating to people with an intent to create the conversation, you're going to find more commissions. So nearly all the communications I help our members with, it's about engaging rather than informing, right? I want you to insert that power question into some of the follow-up that you're currently doing, right? You can get answers to this even before you're face-to-face. You can do that, and you'll be a step ahead. Now, when it comes to messaging, we got to simplify some things here. Messaging can get incredibly complex if you let it. It doesn't need to be that complex, right? There's really two levers. It's like steering a tank. In one hand, you have the technical choices that you've made and whatever those limitations are. Whether it's Wise Agent, KV Core, Boomtown, Follow-Up Boss, Top Producer, blah, 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 you name the tool, they all more or less do the same thing. They organize contacts and they let you send messaging. Great. Well, the other hand is the one that we focus on at Happy Grasshopper. It's all about the quality of the content that you're sending, right? Being able to send the right message to the right people at the right time produces the right conversations. And there is no one-size-fits-all solution for that. So, like I explained earlier today, we have to take the time to get to know each member to really create the super compelling results for them. So we have a process that we go through to do that. Now today at the 10th anniversary Jared James Advance, I wanted to do something super special. So I have a process, like I take people through these consultations. If there's anyone here who's met with us before, wants to use Happy Grasshopper, I'm going to do something amazing for you today. If there are people here who want to use Happy Grasshopper but aren't even sure what we do yet, come back to the booth and talk with us, right? Because today, for 20 people, I'm rolling all of our pricing back 10 years to 2014, right? So I think that's kind of cool. I think that's cool. They say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right? Second best time is today. And I know, gosh, is Kevin Cooper here? Kevin Cooper, Effie, are you here? Where's Effie? Effie, you're not Effie, but she's over here. Okay, that general area. It's cool. Some people are coming to the booth showing me pictures from 10 years ago at the Advance. I say this, I bring this up because I am part of this community and I'm not going anywhere, right? So you've got my contact information. I would love to help you. Again, the special that I described is only for 20 people. I can't do it for everybody. And it's only while we're here at the event. So if you'd like my help, I'm here for you. I'm going to put this email address on the screen one last time. When you send any email to this, what you're going to get in return are my notes of all the buyer psychology categories. It's going to show you the questions to ask. It's going to show you how to identify them. It's like a really good way to go back and use this, right? So what do you guys think? Was this a great session? Yeah? Thank you. I appreciate the applause. Everybody comes to events. You hear a lot of great things. The difference is what you do next. Do you take this home and go, I'm going to get to that? Or do you actually take action now to make it happen? Right? It's not possible for you to apply every single thing that you learn in a 2-day event like the Jared James Advance. It's not. I'm going to encourage you to pick a minimum of one thing that you absolutely will implement. And I'm going to warn you about something that's going to happen, right? It's called the cycle of suck. The cycle of suck is defined by the U.S. Army. This happens, right? You start something, you've got the best of intentions, you take some activity to it, and you encounter a little bit of difficulty, right? I asked the question and I didn't like the answer. I didn't know what category they're in. Well, if you hear that and then you decide not to ask the question again, you're going to repeat the cycle of suck. You'll never break through into the path of mastery, right? So what they teach in the Army is you got to embrace the suck. The first time you ask the power question, You might not understand the answer. That's okay, right? I want to prepare you to expect that so you're not surprised when it happens. You know, the first time you go on a diet, if you're surprised that you're hungry, oh, it's going to be really easy to eat something. Like the first time you work out, if you're surprised you're a little sore, it's going to be easy to decide not to work out. Okay, so the path of mastery is different. The path of mastery is same intentions. Your actions now are measured. Take measured actions, things you can actually define. I was on the treadmill for X amount of time. I saved Y dollars this month to my retirement account. Like, I made X number of phone calls. Things that are measured. Expect some difficulty. Don't be surprised by them, right? Repeat the process and get the predictable results. That's how you go from wherever you are to wherever you want to be. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.